Applied Prince James Hall from Hartford Consistory and Hartford, Connecticut. And I've been a Scottish Rite Mason now. I want to say 1, 2, 3, 4, for like 6 months now, believe it or not. And I've actually been in Masonry now going on 17 years. And so I want to answer your first question that you asked me. I got your list. And like I was explaining to you earlier, I had to think about it for a minute because, so much has gone on, during this Masonic journey with, COVID and everything, I really had to really think over the questions. And I think your first question you asked me was, what made you interested in Scottish Rite Freemasonry? And I had to say that, in all honesty, I wasn't really looking to go into the Scottish Rite because I'm such a busy person, as you know, and you and I have discussed before that I'm a touring DJ. I'm a professional DJ and I travel all over the world. So my time is really limited. And one of the things that I found after I came out of the chair as worshipful master of Tuscan Lodge number 17 in Hartford, Connecticut, I went to the Eastern Stars because the sisters were having a hard time getting brothers to come join them. And I'm sure that's the same all over the country. And I found myself wanting more knowledge and actual masonry, and I just wasn't getting it. And so I ended up going into the Red House. And yeah, as you know, that's nothing but knowledge, brother. And now I serve as the excellent high priest of Joshua chapter number 2 in Hartford, Connecticut. And even there, I was content, but then COVID came and everything just changed. I don't know how it is in Detroit or anything like that. And but yeah, man, it was a struggle because everybody was doing their meetings online. Some people just weren't meeting, and I just found myself getting more and more, into the music to where my time was very limited. Then I started hearing about, the Red House and hearing how things were basically starting to, how can I put it? Just not a lot of membership coming back, man, after COVID. And so I said, man, I really should, think about going back into, masonry as a whole, and getting that knowledge. So I found myself wanting to go deeper, man, on the knowledge and basically on the foundation of why I became a Mason in the first place, you know. And I kept saying, like I said, man, continue saying to myself, what's next? I want to understand why. What were the symbols, not just what, and the Scottish Rite drew me in because, those foundations and lessons, each one is a chapter in a much larger book on philosophy, ethics, history, and personal character. But what really captured my interest was the Scottish Rite's emphasis on education. The idea that masonry isn't something that you simply join. It's something that it's a continuous study. It's a progressive science when the teachings on tolerance, justice, service to humanity, and moral development really spoke to me and the kind of man that I am, and also the kind of man that I wanted to be remembered as and wanted to become. So once I attended my first reunion with Masonry and got into the Scottish Rite, I witnessed the degrees being conferred, and I knew this was the proper path for me that I needed to walk and be on. So, and then the second question that you asked me was, what have you learned the most? I think this probably the greatest single lesson that I've taken away from the Scottish Rite is that masonry is a lifelong journey. It's not a destination. You never arrive. You're continuously and progressively studying, and you keep building. More specifically, I learned the value of tolerance and humility, man. Because you see so many brothers, man, chasing titles and wanting to be, in this chair, wanting to get notoriety for all that other stuff. That's just not me. And the degrees pull from so many traditions, man, Hebrew, Christian, classic, philosophical. And the clear message is that truth doesn't belong to anyone's tradition, and wisdom requires listening to others with an open mind. And that's a pretty powerful lesson in today's world. And I learned to also quietly build, so to say. And the Scottish Rite doesn't necessarily reward the loudest voice in the room. It rewards consistency, integrity, and service. Without many times without applause. I've learned to be better listener, a more patient person, someone who tries to lead by example rather than by title. And honestly, I've learned how much I don't know, which is in itself has been the beginning of my real wisdom, my building of wisdom. And I mean, it's just perfect, man, for like I said, for the type of person that I am and want to be. And to your third question, what was your earliest memory in Scottish Rite Masonry? I have to say that one of my first memories is when I came back into Masonry. I remember walking into the valley and being struck by the atmosphere and the brothers greeting each other like family. The quiet sense of something meaningful and something bigger than myself, was about to take place. And I remember most vividly, I was watching, the brick degrees, being conferred, being performed, excuse me. You know, Many times, our degrees are all about, plays and costumes and dialogue. And it wasn't just a ceremony, it was theater pretty much with a purpose. And I remember sitting there realizing these weren't just plays that I was witness. They were, moral lessons being dramatized so that they would stay with me for the rest of my life, and they have. And as in that first 6 months, I mean, I've learned so much. Becoming a Scottish Rite Mason. I also remember the hospitality of the brothers, man, that welcomed me there because it just showed me that Masonry is much bigger than the Blue Lodge and the people that you're normally around, and getting with like-minded brothers from across the state. I mean, that's a lasting memory, man, that I'll remember and take with me forever. Let me see your fourth question here. Who got me into Scottish Rite Freemasonry? And to be honest with you, it's now somebody, Prince Carlos Gomez, who's actually coming out to Detroit, I think next month. No, next week, right? I believe that he's coming out for his KYCH. And that brother is somebody that I deeply respect, and he's a close friend of mine. He was actually the worshipful master at the time that I came into the Blue Lodge. And he's just someone whose character and integrity is someone that I deeply respect for the person that he is. He never pressured me, about coming into this house. He just led by example, and he lived the principles in a way that made me curious about where he had learned them. And over time and in conversation, in the lodge, we would share pieces of what, Scottish Rite had meant to him, the friendships, the education, and talking with some of the other brothers that were there as well, they said the same thing, man, is that it's just a beautiful, beautiful house. And that, it's something that they can see me doing and they wanted me to be a part of with them. And then like I said, I saw the friendships, man, the education, the charitable work, man, that was going down. I mean, it was just, beautiful. And those are some of the, the tenets and principles, man, that made me want to become a Mason, continued on into the Scottish Rite. I was getting that food, that knowledge, that pushed my drive, and yeah. And like I said, it just changed the way that I thought about masonry, changed the way that I looked at the craft, because after leaving there, I went back to the Blue Lodge and sitting there, listening, to the third degree and thinking to myself, damn, I'm not just hearing it now. I understand it, and that was huge for me. I actually understand, the tenets and the things that are being put out to me, you know, and yeah, and I owe him a great deal. He's I've really been on a Masonic journey with him, and He's not just, my brother and my sublime prince. He's definitely, a friend and someone that I clearly respect. And I'm glad that he brought me into this house, and we've been traveling and doing everything ever since. And then going back to your fifth question, how have you been a better Mason because you're in the Scottish Rite Masonry? Scottish Rite has pretty much made me a better Mason, made me a better man, and three things that I look back. First is the Scottish Rite has, again, deepened my understanding. Like I said, I went to the lodge, and I go through those certain degrees, and like that 14th degree, man, just like the light came on, right? And it hasn't shut off since. Secondly, it made me more committed to service. Scottish Rite is, a lot of charitable work. I mean, the programs, the scholarship programs, going out, man, the charity work that we do, with community outreach reminded me that masonry isn't just about my self improvement. It's about using the improvement in service of others. I've become more active in the lodge, the charitable efforts, even in the Grand Lodge and the Grand Chapter for that matter, because I also serve in the Grand Chapter as the Grand Trustee. Third, the most importantly, it made me more intentional about my character. Degrees are constantly asking you to look inward and to examine myself and my motives and my conduct and my relationship with others. I find myself being more patient with the brothers and sisters that I deal with, and also my family in addition to that, a little bit more generous with my time because I don't really have a lot, but I've learned to slow down, look around, and reflect, and realize it's not just about me; it's about others. And I'm by no means a perfect Mason. I never will be, but I am a better one than I was when I walked in this door. Of Scottish Rite Masonry, and that's the whole point of why I joined. And I thank you for bringing me on here to deliver my message so that maybe others can hear my story and get interested in joining Scottish Rite Masonry.